Okay, so welcome everyone, and it gives me a great pleasure to have on the Startup Grind stage Bindi Karia, also known as a London startup ecosystem queen, and a venture partner at Draper Esprit, and of course founder of Bindi Ventures. Bindi, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. And so sorry it didn't work last time technically. So hopefully this recording is okay in the absence of being live last week.
Absolutely. Very thankful for you taking your time to share these key insights to our dear audience and community. And first of all, I would like to wish you a very happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you.
I know it was your birthday when we were trying to figure out this event, so I'm really pleased to have you here.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's been actually a lovely week. Lots of great friends, and I think being in lockdown, you do get to know who's there around for you. And so yeah, it's been a lovely week. But yeah, now life moves on.
Amazing. So since this is May month is a Startup Grind Women's Month, we'd like to celebrate a female entrepreneurship. So I would like to know, how does diversity and inclusion looks now in London ecosystem, and who are the main shakers and movers, you think?
Well, I think I probably won't name main shakers and movers because what for me is really important is there's just such an amazing plethora of female founders and female investors and female angels in the London ecosystem. And I've been around the ecosystem for a very long time. I'm going to age myself a tiny bit, but when I launched the startup program for Microsoft back in 2007, there were very few women in general. And what's amazing to see in 2021 is I can only just talk about the WhatsApp and Telegram groups I'm part of, and networks I'm part of, which more and more women are founding companies. I'm seeing more and more women, raising Series B and Series C's. I'm seeing more and more women just know that it's okay to launch a business, and then actually, conversely, it's also more and more women in VC.
Mhm.
So lots of venture capital funds are starting to recruit more. They're promoting women. They're putting them in at earlier stage in their career.
When it comes to
There's
GP, LPs, general partners, do you see any increase there?
it's getting there. I think there's definitely a way to go, but the movement is in the right direction. So I'm going to speak from. I don't think we're even close to what it needs to be. We're nowhere near 50-50. We're nowhere even near 30-50, 30-80, or 30-30. You know what I mean? Or 30-70. Sorry, pardon my math. The sun's just making my head go wonderfully happy today. But you know what I mean? I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think people are more open-minded that it's going in the right direction. But having said that, we're not close enough. We're nowhere near as close. And I would say quite openly, I think you do get calls from funds to talk to you about joining the fund, but actually getting to partner level, you still do face that barrier because you had to have done the deals. You had to have evidence and track record because that's just how it works in the fund ecosystem. And so we've got a way to go, being very open about it. But we're getting there. And I think what I also like is, the women in VC networking groups that I'm part of, whether it's in WhatsApp or Telegram, we're doing a lot of deal flow sharing. We're doing a lot of, hey, this fund is hiring. And we're doing a lot of mentoring of younger women to make sure that they get into the ecosystem and ladder. And there's always things like diversity VC. I'm sure you've talked to the team from there, and there's included VC. And so I think, to me, diversity is not just female, male, it's culture, it's race, it's religion, it's LGBT plus, it's everything, and that diversity of thought and opinion makes a big difference in my view.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you mentioned was really insightful, especially for the first time fund managers, emerging fund managers who are female and they haven't had experience of managing a fund. Or so I hope that these initiatives that you mentioned will support them as well. But since we are in the VC and you've been working with Draper Esprit as a venture partner for some time, with their team led by Last Jedi Simon Hook, and they had huge success. Can you tell me a bit more about their work, and potentially if you can disclose some of the portfolio with female founders Draper invested in?
Yeah, so I think because we're investing in Series B and sort of high growth, we're not there yet, right? I think we're proactively looking. We have an ESG strategy, and diversity is a huge part of it. I think that's the first thing. I think secondly, as a fund, it's been an incredible ride. So the fund exited on the stock exchange in 2016. And now we're at a team, and I don't even know how many. We've hired so many people over the last year and lockdown that there's some people I've just not even met yet, except through Zoom and the 2D. So I'm really looking forward to meeting them all in the office. So the fund is scaling and growing, and it's actually becoming, it's now valued at over $1 billion on the stock exchange, continue to invest a lot of money. I think we deployed over 90 million capital last year. But I do know that there's a lot of proactive work. It's a great team as well. I think, as you know, Simon has just recently left the fund and he's focusing on a lot of his own stuff, but him and Stu were the visionaries to pull this together. But now the fund is going to the next level. And we have Martin as the CEO and Will as the general partner, managing partner running the investment team. We have a team that's out in the market and scouting. So there's a lot of amazing people that are just going. And we're focusing on lots of different parts of the ecosystem. So whether it's fintech, whether it's consumer, whether it's deep tech. And I think the other part to mention of the fund, I think, which is really, quite unique, is there's obviously an EIS vehicle that's part of it. So a lot of that money gets deployed. There's a venture capital trust, both sort of UK terms, but that capital gets deployed alongside the main capital from the main fund. But then we do a lot of stuff in secondaries and fund of funds. And actually what's really fun about the fund of funds side of the business is putting money into seed funds and early stage funds. We get an insight into what's happening in the market from a trends perspective. We put money into a fair number of earlier stage fund managers. We get interesting deal flow, and it's actually great. So then in a way, Draper's created their own community and ecosystem, which I know is a word that everyone in Startup Grind absolutely loves. So it's actually quite interesting that in our deal flow meetings, we will see really cool stuff coming up from the fund and the fund of funds. And I think the way that money is deployed is we look at geographics. So we're deploying across mainly Europe and European funds and regional, but we're also looking at vertical. So, we're looking at 5 Seasons, which is food tech and that kind of stuff. Same time, we're looking at Hardware Club in Paris. We're looking at deep tech funds in Cambridge. So we're kind of looking across the vertical. And Jonathan, who runs that side of the business, he's a bit of a genius in the sense that he really has a good nose. And then some of the stuff that I'll do as part of that is I know quite a few early stage fund managers, so I'll make intros on behalf of Draper, on behalf of me into Draper. And then I do a lot of work with corporates for Draper as well. So our portfolio companies may want to sell to them, so I can open doors for that. Corporates can be LPs, corporate can be co-investors, and corporates can be a source of deal flow. So that's sort of what keeps me busy with the Draper team. But yeah, it's a fantastic group of people, and the energy and the passion and the vision for them growing. It's entrepreneurial. It's a very entrepreneurial VC, just like the founders we invest in are. So it's kind of fun to be part of a similar growth path and journey.
It's absolutely amazing what you said. And Startup Grind does love Draper Esprit. We hosted Simon twice on our stage. We also had 2 ladies from Draper Esprit on our London stage as well. And very pleased to see that Nicole is also a partner. So, just coming back to what you said previously about, you've been in this ecosystem since 2007, even earlier. Even though you don't age at all. I'm not sure what's your secret, but
I think being Indian. Thank you for saying that.
So I just wanted to kind of touch base because I moved to London in 2014, as you recall a hyper growth stage of London ecosystem. And one of the Wira's events, which is Wire is our sponsor as well of this event. Well, I listened to your wonderful talk where you kind of explored some of these stages. And if you could maybe share briefly with our audience, what are those main stages? How do you see, and where do you see London ecosystem moving post-Brexit, post-pandemic to specific sectors, whether that's like a fintech, health tech, AI, maybe where we are now leading. So could you elaborate, please, a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a deck I do like about the London tech ecosystem and the London story. And Peter, I'll send you the link because it was part of a book that was published by, I wrote a chapter on it, and it was published by Lloyds Bank and Bank of Scotland. And it's about 18 months old. So the new, like so much has happened even in the pandemic. But kind of what I observed is, I think, first of all, London and New York are on a similar par of growth in terms of startup and ecosystem. It's always been places like San Francisco or the Silicon Valley, Boston. But I think what's really happened is there's been a plethora of support. I think in a way, the ecosystem is a mirror of how I set my own business up. And I think the ecosystem consists of so many different types of players. It's not just entrepreneurs who are the heart and soul of it, but I do feel you've got, the corporates that are part of that. You've got the investors, and now there's all different types of investors, from angel investors to EIS investors to crowdfunding investors, through to early stage VCs, through to growth and, big growth VCs. The corporates are setting up funds, they're setting up accelerators. So obviously you've spent a lot of time with Wyra, and I was good friends with Wyra since 2012 when they first launched. You've also got the people that are supporting the startups, like the lawyers, the accountants, all of those kind of folks that the companies need to get to the next scale. Government, there's so much going on with the government. And you've got, for example, Tech Nation. I know London has had funds on and off and sort of incentives for startups to set up here in London, but obviously all around the UK as well. And then I think, from a government perspective, I can talk in a bit about the work I've done with the European Innovation Council. So I've been with them on the board since it launched in late 2016. And then we did the proper launch at Davos in 2017. And that's the innovation minister who we have now officially launched a 10 billion euro fund investing in deep tech startups. And there's a lot of targets in that fund around investing in female entrepreneurs. I actually co-chair the diversity and inclusion co-working group as part of that fund. So going back to the ecosystem stuff, government has a lot to play in it. And it really is about growth. It's about economy. It's all of those sides of things that government and the policy they do can be really, really helpful. I think co-working spaces are part of the ecosystem. So even though because of pandemic, we've all been working from home, I'm here in my little studio, which doubles as yoga studio, office, closet, everything, and very sunny on a day like today. I think all of that, is part of it as well. And I think how they all work and collaborate together, they all learn from each other. So a lot of what I do with my business is making sure that those parts of the ecosystem will learn and work with each other and all grow together.
Amazing. So talking about ecosystem and kind of giving back to the ecosystem, from successful founders to females supporting females and so forth. Could you tell us a bit more about your work? I mean, you do a lot of pro bono work, but there has to be kind of a balance between, what is the mentoring and what is advising. And I know you did loads of good things, good causes. I know you endorsed exceptional talents for Tech Nation visa and entrepreneurship visa. These are just amazing opportunities for exceptional talents from Europe around the world to come to startup capital, which is London. So can you tell me a bit more about that? Where do you draw a line between advisory and mentorship, between pro bono and paid work? I mean, this relates to your Bindi ventures, I guess, and it's a gray area for all of us, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a really hard one because I think Peter, you're like me, right? We love to give back to the community and ecosystem. So what I've done is sort of segmented my own world into the ecosystem kind of thinking that I mentioned earlier. So I do corporate, startups, investors, and government. And what I want to do and what I have done over the last 5 years is win pieces of work in each of those segments. And for me, if I win a piece of work in corporate, I want to know that I can use my ability to think and talk the language of VC or investor, the language of startup founder, and the language of government innovation to enable that corporate to grow and scale. So, the kind of stuff I do with them, and that's always going to be paid, whether it's a project rate or a day rate or, a success rate. And that's like, do they want to set up an accelerator? So obviously someone like Awira, because we've talked about them a few times, in 2012, when they launched that accelerator, someone like me would have come in a year or two earlier going, what do you want to do? Do you want scouts in Silicon Valley? Do you want to launch an accelerator? Do you want to invest in startups in a VC fund? Do you just want to do strategic partnership deals with startups because that tech really helps your stack? And then the other thing I do is I sit on corporate digital advisory boards. So I've done that for a few years with Shop Direct, and then I did that with Centrica. And then what I would say during the lockdown, corporate innovation has sort of taken a bit of a sidestep, mainly because corporates are focused on the bottom line. And it's really sad that so many that I know are saying, well, innovation isn't part of that spend. But I do hope that comes back. With investors, I really wanted to work with funds, and I just sort of chose the one that I really wanted to work with. So I know sort of when I left Silicon Valley Bank, gosh, over 5 years ago, Simon was one of the first people to pick up the phone going, we need to work together. I don't know how, but we're going to work together. And fast forward to 2021, and I'm working with the fund part-time. Venture partner is always a part-time role. It's sort of 1 or 2 days a week. And part of the reason they have people like us on board is because of the network we have. We can bring our network to help the fund. And I do get a lot of that from the team. Like, Bindi, will you open that door? Open that door. Will you help us with this? Will you help us with that? So it's part of the network helping the fund. I also sit on the board of Bootstrap Europe, which is a venture debt fund, using the knowledge and wonderful insight I gained while at SVB. Startups, I am a shareholder in about 10 startups now. I won't name them all. You just look at my LinkedIn, it's there. But with that one, in terms of getting paid, it's either in equity, which is fine, but then you do sometimes need to get a project rate or a retainer with the startups. And then actually with the startup side, occasionally I'll get a call. I did a really cool project last summer into this February, so sort of from August to February. And a large consulting firm had built this amazing technology, and they're like, let's spin it out. And it was a conversational AI, deep tech piece. And I was sort of helping them figure out how to spin it out. How do you take it out of the business, make it a proper company, and get it ready for funding? So it's kind of building, right? But the product and the technology was there. It had paying clients. But now how do you wrap it up and bundle it, create a pitch deck, and go to market? So they will have officially spun out by last month. And now they're starting to go to market. And I hope longer term I can work with them, because I just absolutely fell in love with the product. I did work in the geekiest division at Microsoft, so I do love, the proper deep tech. I've got another call from someone saying, we need to raise a lot of money, and would you come on board and help us pull the thinking together so we can raise the money? And it is actually an incredibly bonkers idea, which I won't share with you, but it's so bonkers it would probably work in a good way, in a positive way. So sometimes I'll do that. Industry, I sit on a lot of industry boards, and those are sort of ecosystem boards. So Tech London Advocates and Global Tech Advocates, I sit on the board of that since it was launched. Snowball, which is it's a ski trip, but actually it's networking, and a lot of great business gets done. And those are kind of people that have exited 1, 2, 3 times. You've got CEOs of corporates, you've got managing partners of funds. And so it's an incredible group of people that are so experienced. And Snowball people are more mentors to me. Now, I don't mentor them, they're more mentors to me. I recently joined the board of ICE, and that's International Conclave of Entrepreneurs. And that's lots and lots of young entrepreneurs big seed funded onwards. And there's a lot of VCs and part of the ecosystem around UK and Europe on there. And we've got a US chapter as well. So that's quite fun. I'm just looking at the notes here. Pro bono, I sit on the board of University of East London. And that's interesting because East London is in the borough of Newham, one of the most disadvantaged boroughs in the country. And even though it's pro bono, it's a proper board, right? We're sitting, doing proper board work, helping these students, many who have been the first time in university. And obviously I'm bringing my knowledge of the tech ecosystem, which is so deep in East London, to try bring that collaboration together. So that's been really fun. And then on my old university, University of Alberta in Canada, my business school, I've been invited to sit on that board. Government, I have sat on the board of European Innovation Council and Startup Europe. Obviously now with Brexit, that's going to change because I'm sadly no longer European, but I will always be a European at heart. So I'll continue to help how I can, certainly by chairing the diversity and inclusion part of EIC, and that carries on. Mums in Tech was one that I spent time with because the founder was someone that worked for me at SVB. Activator Angels, Innovate Finance, British American Project. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff I do for the love of the ecosystem. And the cool thing about that is, even though a lot of that is unpaid, my personal commercial view is that the network you make from there is only going to be a benefit to the paid work that I do. So I really try to do that. But I'm now at a point where it's a fine line. Mentoring, I love doing, but you can get carried away with mentoring, and you've got to, pay for life and pay to be able to get money to invest in companies and the like. So it's a fine line. I've worked out a nice balance where sometimes it's for good, right? And so I view ICE, for example, or UEL as good and for good, and Snowball, same thing. But I know that's going to result in business. So there are some ICERs that have approached me, or people in TLA that have approached me saying, will you help us? So I kind of know when I should be paid and when I shouldn't be. It's a very fine line, Peter. And I think that the work you guys do wonderfully well with Startup Grind. So I think
I'm so grateful for you supporting the ecosystem and everyone there. And then thank you for sharing all the main pillars of Bindi Ventures. That's great. I encourage all of the viewers and in the audience to check Bindi's LinkedIn profile. She has written a new description outlining all these main pillars, which are absolutely brilliant to see. But so you were actually a Canadian who moved to London, which is interesting, and not many people know. But you were a singer and performer, weren't you?
Yeah. I was. You're so funny. Well, I'm actually not. I'm British born, believe it or not. And then we immigrated to Canada when I was about 5.5. And then I didn't get my Canadian passport till I was 14. But I have a lot of family in London. And I think a lot of people in the audience will recognize my background. My family is Kenyan Indian. So my parents, grandparents, everyone's from Kenya. And we're 4 generations in Kenya. So, Nairobi is as much home as is Calgary, as is London. So I've had the beauty of growing up in all 3 parts of the world. As far as singing is concerned, yeah, I was a singer in Canada. My raspy voice is down to overperforming. I had vocal nodes and I just never got rid of them. So I've got a very raspy voice. And actually, Peter, I think you'll appreciate this. Like in Clubhouse, we run a piano bar and you were there with your guitar and your keyboard in the background, having a good old play with us. And I compare and host that piano bar with musicians around the world.
You have a really good presenter voice. And then if any of you in the audience go to the Clubhouse, there is every Wednesday, I believe, night or Thursday night.
It's every Tuesday night, but we're going to probably switch that again because now things are opening up. All the musicians need to perform at night, but it's kind of fun. You get on stage and you request a song and someone will know it. So it's like you're in an actual real live piano bar. So it was definitely a shining light during, the darkest days of lockdown for us in the UK.
You definitely shed a light for me. And it was fantastic, that you were able to give back the gift of music. And interestingly enough, as most people know, Clubhouse is full of ecosystem stakeholders. And while I was playing with you there, we had all these great VC GPs and entrepreneurs on the stage
Yeah,
requesting the song. And it's interesting to find that other side of our ecosystem where you have
yeah.
more fun, you meet people more kind of naturally without pitching, without pitching you or something else. So that was really interesting experience to see.
Yeah, I think it was showing people another side. And I think the love of music is so bonding. And actually, for my birthday, the musicians from the piano bar, they sent me a beautiful bouquet of flowers. I was like, oh my God, guys, that was just so thoughtful and kind and beautiful. And the card they wrote was like, thank you for sharing the gift of music. And actually, that's the beautiful part is, it bonds you. And actually, I will say, like when you're skiing with someone or when you're traveling with someone at a conference with someone, or you're in a clubhouse and sharing the gift of music, it just brings you closer together. And it's that relationship. And I think for me, that's what ecosystem work is about. It's actually having that relationship where you can pick up the phone and go, hey, like, I know you do this, and do this. Do you want to work with this part of the ecosystem? So connecting startup investors, corporates, and government. And all of them, I have really good relationships quite deeply in each of those segments. And that makes a big difference.
Well, you know what? I just want to say a huge thank you for connecting our ecosystem over the course of more than 10, 15 years, and then for joining us today to share the wisdom. And again, I want to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you. So kind of you.
Yeah, do you have any kind of last notes or key insights that you want to share with our audience?
I just think, entrepreneurship is tough. Like I've set up on my own the last 5 years, and oh my God, it's been up and down in a roller coaster. And, the highs are high and the lows are low. And I just think um, being very authentic and being very human can only work in your favor. And even if it's really, really bad, just keep at it, right? Just don't like I did a talk probably 5 years ago about be like water. And I know that's a Bruce Lee thing, but for me, water is when you hit a brick wall, and I'm actually, as you can see, there's brick walls behind me. But the wonderful thing about water is it finds its way through the brick wall, over, under, around, through. And so that's what I think all of us should be in the ecosystem. Be like water and be authentic. That's kind of my closing words.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope to see you soon in physical form on some of
I
our
know.
upcoming
It'd be nice to see each other in person at long last, right?
events.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your time. Bye bye.